Hi, and welcome to Unhinged History, the podcast where two friends compulsively learn history and then join forces to tell each other the stories that our families are tired of hearing. I'm Theresa, and that is.
Angie,
Mhm. And while the story I got for us
thanks.
today isn't World War II, I do know that we have covered World War II a lot. And Angie's son has recently shared our podcast with his class because the teacher had the audacity not to know what?
About bat bombs.
Bat bombs. Bat bombs, bat bombs, bat bombs. And I actually have to look up what episode bat bombs was.
I think it was an early episode. I feel like it was an early episode, like
Episode
15,
18.
20.
So that's right before Terrare.
Ugh. Like it's in the same episode?
No, it was Sarah Bernhard and bat bombs were 18,
Okay. Let's say, because that would have been an intense episode.
right? So if you're in Ethan's history class, welcome. And we regret
Thanks for
nothing.
listening. Never. Never.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna end up having to take this entire episode, and I've got a long, long bit to go through. I tried to summarize as much as I can, but nearly every single line is going to be, I'm sorry, what?
I need you
I'm
to know
sorry,
the
what?
look on your face tells me I'm so excited about this.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you about Russian Second Pacific Squadron.
They had a first Pacific Squadron?
They did. And we'll
Okay.
actually learn about that, the first one before the second one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so my sources, Defensinism, the War Bible, they have an article, The Village of the Damned, the last only ride of the Russian Pacific Squadron by Patrick Morrison, History.com, the Russo-Japanese War, the Public Eye blog, post, Is this trip necessary? And then there is an incredible history YouTuber named Drachenfell. I compulsively and repeatedly watched the Russian Second Pacific Squadron, The Voyage of the Damned, and Kamchatka Guide 151.
Okay. Hit me with
So
it.
yeah, like once I started reading up on this, I couldn't. I just couldn't. I'm going to take you back September 5th, 1905. The last Tsar is on the throne. He's going to be there for about another decade or so. He's got about 12 years of keeping the seat warm. Russia is one of the greatest superpowers, and given Russia's location, it kind of has a few constraints. Its main shipping center, Vladivostok, is in Siberia and is closed for the winter months.
This
Now,
checks. Okay.
it's like long and flat at the very top kind of deal. So Russia relies heavily on its warm water port of Port Arthur, which is in the Pacific Ocean. And they really need that for trade and for their navy so that they can, keep things coming all year round because life.
Right.
Now, Port Arthur is a port that they're leasing from China.
I didn't know you could do that. Okay.
These are things, right? So this was something I had to really look up because they would just talk about Port Arthur like in just passing, like we should all just know. And I'm like, look, I know nothing about the Russo-Japanese War. Now, because they're in Port Arthur, Japan's kind of concerned about this because 10 years ago, Russia threw its support behind China. And then China and Japan had the first Sino-Japanese War of 1895. So they're kind of in their feels about this. This looks like Russia might be posturing to them, kind of deal. And so Japan, they try to broker a deal with Russia, negotiations break down, and they break down so bad that Japan decides to attack Port Arthur instead on February 8th of 1904. So we're going to
Oh,
fast.
wait.
Yeah,
So sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Someone else tried to attack Russia in winter? When are we gonna learn?
Okay, but no. Port Arthur's in a warm water port.
It's still part
So
of Russia.
it's, I mean,
It's still
yeah, but
winter.
okay, but Hawaii is a part of the US, but go to there in winter. You're not attacking Alaska. It's a warm water port.
Maybe
It's
I'm just
not,
not over Napoleon
okay, you're right,
waging a land war in
But
Russia.
But
in
this isn't
winter.
this isn't a land war. It's water. It's a port. And it's important to get through all of
Yeah.
this because this is all going to be water based.
Okay.
All of this is water based. Now, small problem about Port Arthur. It's got a very shallow entrance. And so the ships, large ships, are going to be trapped in the harbor unless there's a high tide. And it's also got hills and mountains all the way around it. So if the Japanese were able to take the high ground from the mountains and hills, they could basically cut off the supply chain.
Okay.
So this is something that they're working on. Now, small problem for Russia because it is so long and, it covers like a good width of your globe. Their next good fleet is in the Baltic.
Okay. So we're gonna carry them across land
No,
on
no,
potatoes.
you would think. You would think, but actually they end up having so Japan when they attack, they look at this and are like, we got some time. Russia's not gonna be able to do much.
We got like 3 weeks.
Yeah, like we can go do whatever. Anybody want a mani-pedi? Because we've got time. Now, what they attacked in Port Arthur was Russia's first Pacific Squadron. Now, this is the cream of the crop. This is, the big dog in the Pacific Ocean. Now, one of the big problems about this is when they attack the first Pacific Squadron, they also attack and kill a dude named Vice Admiral Stefan Markarov. Marka Stepan Makarov. And he dies when his flagship strikes a mine and explodes. Now, this
Oh,
is
that's
like
unfortunate.
the most like decorated, experienced admiral that they had. So this is a
Okay.
huge blow. Like their intellectual tribal leader just done. So that holder of
Mm.
knowledge is gone. Now, in his hubris, Tsar Nikki II, he decides he's not going to give up the port or admit defeat because reasons.
Why? I do what I want.
Right. Um, Now, Russia does need to mobilize its Baltic fleet and then move them 18,000 miles around Europe, Africa, the subcontinent of Asia, and then back up to the Pacific Ocean. Now,
I love this for them.
yeah, no, Nikki too. He's not really popular right now in Europe because he's made a lot of decisions to make people angry. And so when you think about this massive troop movement, and I use troop movement like I'm playing Risk, around the world, he's going to rely or need to rely on having his own ports to refuel, which he doesn't have, or a lot of allies' ports to go in, refuel, do the things you need to do to maintain your boats. And then apparently, and this is something I learned, there's rules of war which indicate that neutral countries aren't allowed to offer help.
This checks.
So that's a bummer. And also, Russia's fleet from the Baltic is not designed for warm water, and I didn't know there was a different design for warm water boats. Um,
Can't we don't want to crack the windshield.
I mean, yeah, yeah, and the Baltic fleet isn't really good for open ocean or really rough seas, and they're a wee bit old.
Right.
So to combat the issues of the lack of refueling, the age, or the seaworthiness, Nikki 2 ignores all of this.
As you do, because you can.
Yeah, like I equate this to me in college putting a post-it note over my check engine light because that looked expensive and I didn't have the ability to deal with that. So that was future Teresa's problem.
Not today, Teresa's problem.
No.
Facts.
Mhm. Now, the Tsar chooses a man named Rear Admiral Zinovy Mad Dog Rozhestvensky to command the Second Pacific Squadron.
Okay. I already love him.
Mhm. He's known for his short temper, and I've got conflicting sources that say he would actually attack officers who disappointed him. Um, Now, basically, he had no problem attacking people. Apparently, one source says he would attack anyone and everyone, and the other one said he wouldn't attack officers because most were a part of the aristocracy, but he would get as
Hmm.
close to as possible. So I'm thinking he attacked officers and just held back occasionally.
Yeah, he's probably hit a few.
Yeah, and learned the hard way. Now, one of the great things about him that makes him beloved by his men and a lot of the other people is that he's not corrupt. And apparently that's really rare for his position at the time.
This checks.
And despite his short temper, he's remarkably fair. So he's going to punch an enlisted man just as quickly as he'll maybe punch an officer.
My justice goes both ways.
Right. Which I'm sort of here for. Like, I don't
Yeah,
want to know that this guy's going to get a pat on the back and a gold star and I'm going to get my ass kicked.
agreed.
Mhm. Now he's also very demanding. He runs a tight ship, so to speak. Now, this doesn't make him well liked by the upper echelon of the Imperial Russian Navy, but beloved by everyone underneath him. So
I
Nikki
feel like
too,
he's in the right spot.
you would hope, right?
Like there are more of them than there are of the upper echelon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We've seen this come together many times. So Nikki
Mm-hmm.
2 pulls together 42 vessels for this Second Pacific Squadron. They include 11 battleships, 9 cruisers, and that makes up the main force. And then we've got a number of destroyers, gunboats, and support ships. Now, the battleships are made of I'm going to say this like I've been saying it my whole life, a tumble home design, but that makes them unusable in rough seas. Now, some of these ships are also grossly overweight, and who among us? And their position of the secondary armament, actually, because of the weight, puts them dangerously close to the water line. So I imagine you want your guns above the water so you can actually use them. And so having them super close makes things a bit rough.
This checks. Okay.
Mhm. Now, also, the work quality of the repair work or any of the outfitting or things like that, that is a bit questionable, to the point where the battleship Oreo sank in a harbor while being refitted for this voyage. Apparently, there was a mechanic or a repair dude. He removed some of the sheeting from the hull, not realizing that a ship needs a complete and encased hull to stay afloat. And he goes home for the night, and the ship sinks while he's gone.
But dude, could you imagine how bad your next days suck when you can't find your work from the night before?
And it's like, no, no, it's there, Stephen. It's under the frickin' water.
Hey, click, I parked it right here, boss.
Yeah. So they end up having to do some fun repair work there. Now, there's some new vessels that they have found for this fleet as well. Small problem, they're untested in battle, and we have others that are just so old that they are termed obsolete. So we've got a wide range of skills and abilities here.
How we do? Okay.
Um, Also, we have some merchant ships and then some yachts. They may or may not have defensive sheeting on the sides, and they probably have guns tacked wherever they can get them.
Tact. I like this. Okay.
Hmm. And then because refueling is going to be a problem, Russia's had contracts with various ship lines throughout this whole thing that they're going to resupply the ships with coal. But because they can't necessarily do it inside a port because of the rules of war, they have to do it in the open ocean, which has never been done before. And apparently, it's dangerous to dump a lot of fuel into these ships in port in stable, steady conditions. And now we're going to do it after we've upped the ante a couple of notches.
Okay, does this fleet ever even make it to the Pacific?
Hold that thought. Just hold that thought,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Because you're going to be asking that repeatedly.
Oh my God, this is so Shakespearean, isn't it? Like 5 minutes one way or the other would have made all the difference.
Oh my gosh. Like everything about this is
Ugh.
roll for initiative. Now,
Oh.
Rozhestvensky, he's informed that the Tsar has allocated enough ammunition for the upcoming battle, but only enough for one battle. There's not enough extra of any kind for exercises to train the gun crew. He needs to conserve. Um,
He says this to the guy that has no problem hitting you, right?
mhm,
Like,
yeah. Is this
okay,
gonna be a
okay.
problem? I mean, just save your aggression. Just kind of take that testosterone and
Hint it
bottle it
all
up.
up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, also, there's a small problem because a lot of his conscripts are very uneducated. Most are coming from landlocked regions in Russia, and they've never seen the open ocean until now.
This feels problematic. Like,
Now,
I might change my mind and decide to go home and be a farmer right quick.
now would be a good time to go see if your grandmother's on fire.
Just to check.
Just just one sec. I think I left the gas on. Um, One officer is quoted in saying one half of this lot needs to be taught everything because they know nothing. And the other half also needs to learn everything because they've forgotten it.
So we are dealing with the very young and the very old.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Um, and then we also have a problem with the officers because
Of
the
course.
officers under his command apparently aren't shining examples of professionalism, and many of them would often sneak off to get drunk on shore.
As you do.
So this is basically Mchale's Navy. I don't know if you saw the
Truly.
1997 reboot
Yep.
with Tom Arnold.
It's been a while, but yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
it.
and I looked it up just before you logged on, and it only has 1 star on Rotten Tomatoes.
That means it's an amazing movie.
I mean, it's everybody hates it with love.
It's just one of the best, you know?
So Rozhestvensky, he's leading his ragtag fleet out of the Kronstadt Naval Base October 15th, 1904, and he's got medals and stars on his chest. He stood as straight as a ramrod, looking resolutely at Tsar Nicholas. That seemed as if nothing could stop him. Rozhestvensky explained that his mission and his or about his men and his mission, he says, we're now doing what needs to be done, defending the honor of the flag. And he's not saying
Okay.
anything about victory because I think he recognizes what's ahead of him. And it's as he's saying
Sucks to
that.
suck.
Yep. Now, as this is happening, they're getting ready to, they've smashed the champagne bottle on the front kind of deal, and they're getting ready to send everybody out.
So it's got to be a bottle of vodka. They're Russians.
Probably, yeah. And I have
Yeah.
no idea about the champagne or vodka smashing because I don't know if you do that when you're going to war. I think that when you're christening the boat. But as that's happening, the 13-ton Oreo runs aground just trying to get out of the harbor.
I'm I want to watch this movie so bad.
It's like we're still in the harbor and they've already smashed the car into the garage.
Help.
So they get out of the harbor and they're following the Danish coast, and that's when their sailors start screaming.
Yeah.
They start yelling
Listen,
Go
they've
ahead.
never seen water before, and you're taking them to Denmark? Like, you've seen the TikToks of this open ocean of the
Yeah.
world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I too have concerns.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Krakens live there.
Freely
Just
and gladly.
just saying.
Yeah.
In
Um,
fact,
the sailors are yelling, they're all doomed, and the Japanese Navy is waiting to ambush them as soon as they make it into the North Sea.
they know.
And
Meanwhile, Japan's over there painting its toenails.
yeah, they're sitting and they're in the Pacific Ocean, just kind of going like, do you think pink's my
Here
color?
comes friend. Truly, yeah.
Are we done with
Ooh, do we
French
have the
tips? Are we past
French?
that?
Yeah, we just Have you seen the new coffin point? I think that would be great for war.
Right.
Can we
Yeah.
work with that?
Yep. Now, one of my sources, Defensinism, he does state that basically this wasn't necessarily completely bonkers. It's bonkers, but it's not completely bonkers because the Japanese ships are being built by the British. Now, the British aren't going to be able to kick out the number of ships needed for the Japanese to pull off this maneuver in just a couple of months. It takes time to build a warship, apparently.
Yeah.
Um, and even if they did, the Japanese don't have the capacity to teleport their soldiers from Japan to Britain so that they can take these boats, man these boats, and operate these boats in a battle mode.
In the North Atlantic.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not completely out of the realm of impossibility. It's like your the chances of you being killed by slugs is never zero. You know, it's
You're even are
always
much higher.
incredibly low, but it's never zero.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still off the Danish coast. The Danish coal ships come to resupply them, and these poor, never seen the ocean sailors are struggling, and they continually start colliding with these Danish coal ships. And after
Of
numerous
course.
collisions, our man Roz is like, he has to actually, he's trying to tell them, stop moving, just stay still, just stop. It's like a kid in the barber chair. That he actually has to open fire and shoot shots across the bow of one of his own ships to get them
Shots
to
fired.
stop moving. And in the end, he ends up saying that ship is dismissed and sends him home because they cannot.
Could you imagine walking back through your front door and your mother's like, "Oh, my victorious son returns," and he's like, "No."
No, we couldn't sit still in class.
That's exact same exact energy. Teacher kicked us out today.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Now, more rumors start circulating about the crew of a possible Japanese attack. And to remedy this, to get everybody to calm the hell down, Rozhestvensky says that, you know what? We'll just have an order. Absolutely no vessels are allowed to enter this fleet. So just keep that in mind. It will be good. Unfortunately, no sooner than he gives the order than a fishing vessel approaches the squadron, and the already panicked crews begin to open fire on it.
I would like to know how you tell the rest of the world you can't interact with our fleet. How are they going to get whatever? I have so many questions. Carry on, poor
Yep.
fisherman.
The problem is this vessel is actually carrying a message from the Tsar saying that our man has been promoted to vice admiral.
The fishing vessel
The
is.
fishing vessel has a note from the Tsar. Now the
Okay.
cool news. All of these seamen are so awful at their job that the fishing ship is unharmed.
Well, that's good.
We also need to remember they have limited ammo.
Right. Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Okay.
Now, it's about this time we hear from the Kamchatka, which is a repair ship. It radios that it's being attacked by Japanese torpedo boats. And when the crew of all the other ships starts asking how many are attacking you, they respond about 8 from all directions. There are no Japanese boats.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
The Kamchatka feels zero need to walk back their statement or apologize for maybe missing things. They basically are like, well, we maneuvered out of the way.
We're good.
Now,
So they hit a rough patch of turbulence underwater.
mhm. Now this is when we get to October 21st. They encounter a flotilla of British shipping vessels, and the
Of
Russians
course.
confuse the fishing nets for torpedo and open fire on the fishermen.
Oh
It's
my
absolute
God.
chaos as shells begin raining down on the fishing fleet, and the Russian vessels begin to report that they've just been hit by torpedoes. Some Russian soldiers begin to draw life vests and prepare to jump into the North Sea, thinking that they're sinking, while other men blindly charge around with whatever weapons they have, like sabers, and scream that they're being boarded, which causes even more panic. Now, the
You
good
know
news,
why this is happening? This is happening because there's no women on these ships.
there's probably a lot of reasons why this is happening, but probably a diverse thought process is one of them. Um, so I've got some good news for you. They hit several of the fishing boats, so their aim's improving. They even sink one.
Oh my gosh, we're up for like Star Trooper,
Hmm.
Stormtrooper status now. Okay.
They also score hits on the Russian cruiser Aurora and the Dmitry Donskoy. They end up
Their
killing one
own
of.
ships?
Mhm.
Okay.
Um, on the Aurora, they end up killing a sailor and a priest.
Oh, they
Now,
hit their own friend. Oh, idiots.
Britain has some big feelings about their fishing fleet being attacked, and apparently they don't believe that Russia was defending itself from the fishermen. And it's not long before cruiser squadrons belonging to the Royal Navy begin to show up and shadow the Russian fleet. Multiple British fleets around the region are mobilized, and Lord Beresford of the Royal Navy proposes that he's going to make it a fair fight. He believes in chivalry. He's planning on, after studying their attack tactics, he's going to engage the squadron. And when he does, he's only going to use 4 of his battleships to take out their 41. And
That's nice of him.
yeah, he's like, I'm just going to hold the rest in reserve on the off chance that maybe 1 or 2 land a hit.
Okay.
Now, eventually, diplomacy where like wins out, everybody goes home, kind of. Now, it's at some point during this that the Kamchatka gets separated from the fleet, and
These guys again, huh?
you're going to say that all the time. This is going to be a refrain of yours. Whenever I say, and then
Okay.
the Kamchatka, you're going to be like, oh my God. Um, it believes it's surrounded by Japanese ships, and it fires 300 shells on ships belonging to France, Sweden, and Germany.
Why has no one stopped their captain yet?
I don't know, but it's shortly after this that Rozhestvensky is like, you know what? You need to stick close to me. You need to sit in the front row of teacher's classroom right next to my desk.
Do not move.
Yeah. But I'm still shocked that this wasn't the start of World War One.
Truly. I mean, if you're being honest,
This makes
yeah.
more sense to kicking off World War One than, as I told you yesterday in a teaser, of like a Serbian shooting an Austrian that causes Germany to declare war on Britain. Like that's all convoluted. Russia opens fire on every European power while already having strained relationships with them. Done. Call it. This is over. Go to war.
I am imagining that about at the point World War II started or World War One started that everybody remembers this.
Mm,
So they're like, do you remember about 10 years ago? Um
yeah.
yeah.
Well, either way, tensions relax a little bit or subside. The Russians finally leave European waters.
Well, that's nice.
It's nice to know we're making progress. They get to Tangier in Morocco, and one of their ships somehow manages to cut the telegraph cable that runs underneath the harbor, which cuts off all of communication from Tangier to Europe.
That's that doesn't look suspicious at all.
Not at all. But it's at this point that the Kamchatka is ordered to sit right next to the teacher
Oh,
for
these
maintenance.
guys again.
Pretty much. Now they get off the coast of West Africa and they link up with a German merchant vessel that's been contracted to give them more coal. And then to minimize the amount of times that they're needed to refuel, the Russian fleet is ordered to take double the loads of coal since the coal bunkers aren't large enough to take the amount they need. They're putting like stacks of coal everywhere they can find space, like storerooms, on the deck, in the passageways. If you can put some coal there, you're doing it.
Okay.
Small problem with this. This resulted in the entire fleet being covered in a fine layer of highly explosive coal dust.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And as these ships make their way down the African coast, there's a humidity problem. Combined with the coal dust, there's now thick black tar coating the lungs of every man in the squadron.
Mm,
And,
nice.
and anybody who kind of has a touch of respiratory problems is kicking the bucket.
Yeah, okay.
But good news,
This
they
is a
sail,
class action lawsuit later, isn't it?
you know, I don't think so. And we'll get to the end and you'll understand why. The good news is they sail into a storm and that kind of clears the air up, washes a lot of, stuff away. And as the storm subsides, they're doing roll call, asking how everyone's doing. And the Kamchatka replies, instead of saying, we're all good, the Kamchatka replies, do you see torpedo boats?
Because we see torpedo boats.
So this causes obvious panic, and they
In
takes
fact.
a second to get the class, back settled down. Now, Rozhestvensky, he's trying to do everything he can to cope with stress. So he's giving the captains very creative nicknames like brainless nihilist or slutty old geezer.
I love it. You do what you
Hmm.
got to do, you know?
And he also has a habit of throwing his binoculars over the side of his flagship anytime he goes into a complete rage.
I
And
How many pairs does he have? Because by now I feel like he's there's some sets floating at the bottom of the ocean.
it's funny you mentioned that. His staff had a understanding this was probably going to happen, so they bring at least 50 pair.
Good for them. Way to
But
know your boss.
you do what you can, right? To support what
Yeah.
he needs to do to unwind to lead everyone. Um, so despite his nicknames, despite his rage throws, this isn't enough, and he is known to walk out onto the bridge ring and literally scream at captains or vessels that manage to piss him off, even if they're up to 5 miles away.
Okay, this guy has the exact same energy as all of our ancient friends who declared war on Poseidon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's got more brain power, but the same energy. Now, the fleet gets close to Cape Town, and it's at this point that Rozhestvensky learns that the Tsar is sending a quote third Pacific Squadron.
Oh, how helpful. Okay, where did
Hmm.
they come from?
Well, they have to be comprised of ships worse than what he's got,
Well, yeah.
and he figures this out. So he decides that he doesn't. You know what? I do need help, but not the kind of help you're offering. And so he stops telling command his location or gives any updates about his progress because he's just, if you can't find me, you can't join me, and I'm not responsible for you.
Neener, neener, neener.
Now, once the British hear about this and they hear that he won't share his location, they tell the Russians, hey, by the way, we've got a fishing fleet in Durban, just in case, just in case. We just want you to know where we are.
Please leave us alone.
Yeah. So they get to Madagascar and they learned that at Port Arthur, the Japanese sunk at least three of the battleships. And Russia's afraid that they're going to refloat these battleships and use them against the Russians. So the sailors, with a little bit of shore leave, they decide to go buy some pets. Now, if you were stuck on warships heading into battle, what kind of ships would you buy? Or what kind of pets would you buy, Angie?
I'm in Madagascar.
Hmm.
My God, please tell me it's monkeys. Lemurs? Is it lemurs?
They buy at least a crocodile, venomous snakes, and a bunch of other things. Now, the problem with the venomous snakes is one of the snakes
They're
coils.
venomous?
Yeah.
They're snakes?
Hmm. Um, one coils itself around a gun. And when a commanding officer tries to get the snake down, the snake bites him and the man dies.
Oh my God.
Now, somebody thought it was going to be a great idea to get Rosinetsky a talking parrot as a pet.
As you do.
Now, this parrot learns his extensive vocabulary of Russian curse words.
This parrot, it belongs in your aviary at the zoo.
Yes, in the beer garden.
Uh-huh.
Although I will say this parrot and Andrew Jackson's parrot would be just a joy to have sitting next to each other.
Oh, comparing notes.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh man.
Now, the flagship itself gets overrun with chameleons that the crew brings on board. Now, the problem with chameleons is they blend into everything. So they're nearly
Oh my
impossible to catch.
God.
Now,
And
the
what's Roskonowski doing? Is he like, thanks guys, I love this bird, or is he contemplating his own life choices at this point? Like, my mother wanted me to be a mathematician. I should have been a mathematician.
he is so stressed out that he gets sick.
But he
So
loves his bird.
he's bedridden right now. Now, I'll circle back on him in a paragraph. Now, as we're thinking about these pets on board the Aurora, the one that is taking hits for the team, um, it becomes so overrun by predatory creatures that its crew is having trouble sleeping.
Dummies. That's their
Mhm.
fault.
It is their fault, because basically every time they go night nights, they know that the ship is moving with creatures that want snacks.
We can't close the door because we're idiots. The door's probably been blown off.
Well, I mean, when you're dealing with snakes, it it almost doesn't matter. It's the crocodile you can avoid from time to time because you can see it. So
Oh my God.
so he Vice Admiral, he's feeling a little under the weather. He's sick. His chief of staff is also not doing the best. He suffers a brain hemorrhage and becomes partially paralyzed. And so
Oh geez.
the crew decide now's a good time for an extended leave. So they go back aboard or back on shore and they indulge in the same activities you would imagine sailors have. And so they come back with a host of tropical diseses and every STD
And
they could.
syphilis.
I knew you were gonna bring that up. Yeah.
Oh my word.
It's
These guys are idiots.
also around this time that a refrigeration boat breaks down and they have to throw a bunch of rotted meat overboard, which attracts sharks.
I'm sorry that this cannot be real. You made this entire story up.
And then the Kamchatka.
Ah, yes. The teacher's pet.
They hold a funeral for a crewmate and they fire
I
off a
don't know why I
salute.
thought you were gonna say they hold a funeral for a crocodile. I just thought I expected that first.
You know, I won't fault you. Um,
Okay.
so to fire off a salute for this fallen sailor, they use a live round,
They kill another one.
which again strikes the Aurora.
Oh, sweet Lord. These guys.
Now, it's about this time that they say that the mental health takes a nosedive.
Oh, it wasn't the snakes in their sleeping quarters?
It's reported that one sailor is so over the edge, he's traveling between ships half naked, asking the crews if they fear death.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Now, because this is a group of men and they claim that he's half naked, I don't know which half.
Oh my gosh, he's Donald Ducking it.
Winnie the Pooh just asked me if I fear death, and I've got concerns.
He was holding a chameleon, I think.
Maybe.
Oh my God.
So finally, Rozhestvensky, I think I've been saying his name differently every time. My apologies for
Our
that. But
friend.
he finally gets out of his sick bed and he rounds up the worst of his officers and sends them back to Russia. But in the process of doing this, and pulling all of his officers and trying to figure out what the hell happened while he was down for the count, he figures out that there's about 2,000 cigarettes on board that were bought by these officers that were filled with opium.
Oh my God.
So these officers, in their defense, they were busy.
With opium and stuff.
Yeah. So
So we let them buy the snakes, sir, because we were busy.
we had the sleepies.
I took a nap.
Hmm. It's at this point they realize the ammo's almost gone. But the good news is there's a supply ship that comes.
Oh, okay.
It has no ammo.
Of course not.
It
Why?
has
Why would it?
it has thousands of heavy fur coats for the crew to use in the warm water port that they're going to.
Who who first of all, who sent this? And who didn't know where they were going?
Unclear.
This is, you know what this is? This is a box of gifts from mom back
Hmm.
home. All the
Yeah.
moms got together and they were like, they're gonna need a coat.
They
And
always
they
need a
sent
coat.
coats. You know these fools never keep their coats on.
Dmitri loses his coat. I sew the labels in and he just takes them off.
I saw it on another kid just last Tuesday.
Vladdy came home wearing his sister's shoes. I ask you.
I'm telling you, man. That's exactly what it was. I will be told nothing else.
That's fair. Now, Rozhestvensky's he attempts to restore order. It doesn't go well either. He's like, you know what? We're going to take the limited ammo that we have that we're not supposed to be using for firing drills, but we're going to do it. Um, and so he has a boat towing a target, and he has everybody taking shots. Small problem. They miss the target completely, but they hit the
And sink
ship.
the boat.
They hit the ship carrying the target.
Good job, guys.
Uh-huh. Um, they also have trouble with torpedoes. They're either malfunctioning or going rogue and causing panic among the flotilla. But our our team, the Aurora, they actually hold a race between several of the small boats that they have. And they actually have success. Everybody, does the race as you would assume it would go, and all the ships make it back without incident. So small win. The Aurora is
Gotta take
really
the tiny victories.
the only thing that is good here, despite their holier than thou art, just with a whole spelled two different ways.
Poor guys.
Now it's about this time that the Third Pacific Squadron, having gone through the Suez Canal, they don't decide to go around Africa to shave time off. They end up meeting up with the Second Squadron, and it's about this time that our man, the Vice Admiral, gives or sends his uh, resignation to the Tsar, and the Tsar
Ah,
refuses it.
that, that is honestly the only sentence that was gonna make any kind of sense right there.
Yeah. He's like, you know what? I can't. I'm done. And the Tsar is like, actually, no, no.
I don't accept. Um,
New phone, who dis?
I'm sorry, and you are?
Hmm. Now, at some point, the Kamchatka is struggling to keep up. It is a slower boat in general, but it's having more trouble than it should be. And so
Oh, I wonder why.
they
The
message
syphilis.
the vice admiral and they say, look, we got a load of bad coal or something. Can we throw it overboard? Now, the vice admiral, he says, absolutely not. Absolutely. It's the coal is not bad. That's not the problem. The problem's the crew. You want to throw the crew overboard? I bet that'll improve your situation. Now, the Kamchatka realizes that the crew just hadn't been using enough coal. And so immediately they start making some better time.
Idiots.
Now, May 27th, 1905, the 2nd and 3rd Pacific Squadron sail Tsushima Straits on their way to Port Arthur. Now, the Japanese are finally here, and one source says that the Japanese
Where's
at
the Kamchatka?
I got one more line about
Are
the
they
Kamchatka.
I
Got
need them to be positioned in the middle of the fleet. Like you can't tell me that the torpedoes are coming because you're surrounded by your brothers, you idiots.
Yep. Um, it's at night, and this Japanese boat approaches their hospital boat, which has the lights on because it's a hospital boat, so don't shoot me. And the hospital ship alerts them and says, "Hey, be careful. We've got Japanese ships nearby, and we don't want you to crash into any of the other Russian ships. So just be careful." And the Japanese are like, "Oh, yeah, we'll watch out for Japanese boats." And they sail away and tell the Japanese, "Hey, by the way, everyone's sitting right over there." By the end of the next day, the Russians had lost 8 battleships, more than 5,000 men, and only 3 vessels ultimately make it to their destination. The Kamchatka is one of the
Three.
ones lost at sea. And
I
it
thought
was,
for sure you were gonna say they actually made it.
they had a 50-50 when you think about it. You know, the
They
way
really did.
fate had really been rolling dice with them. But it's this decisive victory on the Japanese's part that forces Russia to pursue a peace agreement. But
Ooh, which they could have just done 6 months ago.
yeah, they could have just said, you know, this is a foregone conclusion.
Oh, Nikki.
But that is the story of Russia's Second Pacific Squadron.
I Are you sure this isn't a hoax?
No, this is 100% real.
This is this is like Jack Sparrow met the Three Stooges and they all spoke Russian.
Yeah. But like every other line was,
Uh,
and then the Kamchatka. And I was just like, go on.
these fools.
Like I have been a part of several really flawed product launches. I have been through the mix of like, what the hell are we doing? But this gives me hope that I have never been a part of the very craziest.
No, I feel like the Kamchatka takes the cake on that one.
I mean,
Um, I would love to know what this story is. Okay, because so we get the joy of looking at this like outsiders, right?
mhm,
Like Japan's just doing Japan's thing, being Japan, and
yeah,
Russia is like, historically known for being this big rough and tumble, like skilled warlord. And
yeah.
then all of a sudden, this moment in history happens, and we have the joy of laughing at it. But like, what's Russia think about it?
I mean, I can only imagine that Nikki too is not thrilled with life.
Yeah.
And
Oh gosh.
I feel so bad for Vice Admiral Rozhestvensky because it's just he knew at the launch of this was a foregone conclusion, and he does it just for honor.
Oh.
Do you want to see a picture of
And
him?
what's he get for it? Yes. Please tell me it includes his parrot.
He does make it out. I don't think the parrot makes it out. I never hear any mention about the parrot again.
That is exactly what I thought he would look like.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
He's got the shoulder lapel things. Okay, okay. So, imagine Czar Nikki too, because same hairline.
Oh yeah.
Um, Big, dark, on point eyebrows. His facial hair is so well manicured. I'm slightly jealous. He's
Yep.
got shaved in mutton chops, but like the beard and the mustache at the bottom, they're full, they're beautiful. High collar, his chest is covered in ribbons and medals, and I would love to high five him.
He
And
would
then have,
I'd want to have a drink with him because
yeah,
I would be like, okay,
I
but
want,
how do you say slutty old geezer?
um,
Because there
how do
was a
you
list
say,
of them.
oh, I'm
Like,
sure.
and then this is the route they had to take, right? Now, you'll notice a couple of lines because like the Kamchatka wasn't designed to be able to sail quickly. It just wasn't. So, um, the Kamchatka and some of the ships go down to the Suez Canal and then they meet up down here. He takes all of his ships down here. He doesn't want to take all of his ships to the Suez Canal because he's afraid of getting caught in that pinch point, being attacked by the Japanese. So he figures to
Right.
do that. But they cause this massive traffic jam in the Suez because they're going so incredibly slow and all the merchant ships can't get through.
This
And
checks for the
they're super
Kamchatka.
paranoid with the hair trigger. Yeah, but they make it down here. And then you have the other line, the third fleet, that they come down and then they meet up with them around Vietnam. And so then
Oh
they
my
travel over through
gosh.
here.
I would have also retired. Been
Yeah,
like, I hate this place.
I'd have gotten on shore in Madagascar and just said, "Tell everyone I'm dead.
Please. I'm dead.
I'm
This
out.
is
Deuces."
deuces. With love and peace.
Hmm. Good luck in your future
Bye.
endeavors.
Yep. Madagascar's fine. It's beautiful here. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love him.
But
He wins.
when I got to the and they got pets, I was like, all right, like crocodiles. Quack, quack.
Oh, venomous snakes. Because yeah.
Because we have the terrarium for that on the
Yeah.
ship.
Yeah. What are they feeding them?
The rats that are on the
Oh
ship.
my God. Each other.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna say it. I wouldn't be half surprised if their own fleet sunk the Kamchatka. Like,
I mean, like, I feel like everybody wanted the Kamchatka to just go away and play in traffic,
yeah, you're not wrong.
especially the Aurora that keeps taking shots.
Yeah, they sunk their own ship on that one. I'm just gonna say it.
They saw a point when they were in the middle of battle and they're like, you know what? Now's a good time as any. Pew pew.
Gotcha.
Hmm. This is for that
Oh
funeral
my
rites,
gosh.
mother.
Hmm. That made my entire week.
Hmm.
Yep. That that's gonna go in my top of favorite stories for sure.
I mean, this is up there with, your holy Roman emperor going to war against himself.
You know, sometimes you just gotta go to battle and lose and win at the same time.
Hmm. Hmm. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about
Oh.
when I was going through this. I was like, oh man, this is just so many blunders, just back to back to back. And when
Yeah,
I
but I
was,
like at least I'm gonna stand on this. At least leading up to Cransby's, nobody stopped and got pets.
I feel like Pets is a pro and not a con.
So do I. Oh, Lord Almighty.
When I was telling Hubs the story, I was like, and then they left European waters. He like nearly collapsed. He was like, oh my gosh, this is so much storyline for knowing they're still in the backyard.
Like they haven't
Like
even made it out.
they're still in the
Dude,
neighborhood.
you know that there's a Japanese admiral watching and just wait like,
Yeah.
we're gonna wait here. It's
No. Yeah, his name was Togo. And Togo watches like the whole thing and he's just like, "We'll wait.
okay.
They're going to wear themselves out. Maybe they'll turn around because reasons."
Drink. I can just see he's got his tea. It's just
Yeah, just sitting on the bow of his boat just being like,
feet
"Okay,
up, reading the paper.
then the Kamchatka did what? Oh, this is lovely. Will you tell Emperor Meiji? We'll be here. We'll be here."
Yeah, again, we'll keep waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got time.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much. You've just made my entire week, and my poor family is going to hear this story tonight. It's going to be delightful.
Hmm. Well, if you've enjoyed hearing this, if you can't wait for info dump on your Vice Rear Admiral, just to let them know that, hey, things could really be worse. At least you're not the Kamchatka. So remember that on your performance review. Please and thank you. You deserve the raise.
I need a shirt that says, "At least you're not the Kamchatka." Like, and I want it to be like a little battleship with like half of it underwater.
Do you see torpedo boats?
The Japanese are coming. Honey,
So,
we're still in the Baltic.
but they could be here. The chance of them not being here is not zero.
Yeah.
So if you've enjoyed
Oh.
this, if you're like, goodness grief, what are they bringing to me next week? And you have to know because quite frankly, I do too. Share us. with your favorite boat builder and rate and review and subscribe. And on that note, goodbye.
Goodbye.